Today's guest is someone who spent her career asking tough questions and building bold solutions. Kelley is the CEO and co-founder of pepelwerk, a platform rethinking how we connect people to meaningful work based on skills, not just resumes. She brings over 25 years of leadership experience across HR, consulting, tech, and she's not afraid to challenge outdated systems in education and hiring. You're really going to want to hear what she has to say and how, if you listen up, you can actually be a part of the solution and solve some of these long-standing issues that are going on right now. She's also the author of Predictable Probabilities, a book that explores the patterns, behaviors, and data behind how people really get ahead and how we can create smarter, more equitable pathways into the workforce. Whether you're a student, an educator, an employer, or just someone curious about where the world of work is headed, Kim's perspective will make you think differently. I know I did. Let's get into it. So, welcome to Strategic Shift. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. I'm looking forward to strategically shifting.
Yes. Well, you are the inspiration behind why this show even exists, because you are on the front lines out there actually being the change in the world, not just talking about it, but you're actually building a company that's helping people strategically shift by your software, your technology, and your philosophies in education. So I want to thank you for that, because I wouldn't even be here hosting if it wasn't for you.
Well, thank you for the acknowledgement, and it takes a village, right? I just create a platform, a way for people to act on the things that they would like to act on, or things that people want to be a part of. And I'm glad that you captured that the intention is really to help all people strategically shift.
Yeah, I totally get that. What got you here? Like, what had you even start the company you started, pepelwerk? What was like the catalyst for that?
For this conversation, because we're talking about strategically shifting, and that means some people can hear that and they hear change, and then they immediately are going to shut off the podcast. They're like, I don't want to talk about change. Like, change is everywhere. I want to be able to be still and be consistent, and I don't want any more change. And some people are going to hear that and feel like that's exciting. I'm totally ready. I'm like a chameleon. I shift like with the rooms that I'm in, right? So you get these degrees that people are going to hear the name of the podcast, the kind of conversation that we're having. But how I'm answering the question is really to present a line of thought. It could help people realize that changing and strategically shifting are not the same thing. Sometimes people think change is just out of like something completely new. I don't want to do it. I don't want to try it. I don't know what's going to happen to me as this change happens. Strategically shifting is making sure that you can iterate with change where it's palatable and digestible. So my motivation for pepelwerk, God's moment when he brings opportunity into your world, either hits you over the head like, hello, aren't you paying attention? Or that this is what your life experiences have come to be, and now you need to act on it, is my daughter. When my oldest daughter came back from college and she was really distressed about her future. It's not because she wasn't willing to move into the next stage. It's just that the actions that society and I told her to take that would hopefully give her a way to strategically shift failed her. It just failed her. So can
I ask you how? Can I ask you what were some of those failures, those expectations that didn't match up?
It was, if I do this, then success will happen. Dreams will happen. Goals will be achieved. And it's not like blah, blah. It's not like you're saying you're setting up somebody and saying, oh, just because you tried, you will win and you'll accomplish your goals or you'll get to whatever you want to do. Well, let's just talk about her experience and probably your experience and my experience and a lot of people listening on this call. If you look at the world's history, I mean, like I'll say the world's civilized history before we were like beating people up with, clubs like cavemen, right? Or we're talking about like 1810, 1910, 2010. In those 300 years, the process of life didn't really change. It was, you are changing from this stage of life to this stage of life to this stage of life. And in that stage of life, like you're expected to do these things and then these things and then these things. And also you're only going to be labeled one thing and then one thing and then one thing. So my daughter's experience is that her generation was in that tipping point where change and how we do life stop being blocks of time and segments of what you have to change into. Her generation became where work and education started to meld, like what education and access to education was and how it was changing. Like her generation was in the middle of all of this change, but by the time she got to graduation, where in life before the internet connectivity, people redefining and how they're labeling themselves and when they're doing things, she might have had a higher success of getting a job because that was like the next thing for her to be able to do. And obviously, if people don't know the story, and I have a book out, but also I think on many other podcasts, I've explained the details of why her transition was so monumental to me. But for this conversation, I really was just trying to explain like seeing her as that monumental generational divide of how you do life was the aha.
Got it. What do you think is missing? Like, what is the big disconnect between what we've all been told is the pathway and is sort of these, like you're saying, these transition moments that we're supposed to be able to count on that just aren't working out for so many people? What's the issue?
I think it's because we're just so used to limiting language. Like here's a great example. I have a kid in my neighborhood. He is some kind of crazy genius. And I have another kid. And so when I say kid in my neighborhood, I mean like neighbors' kids are like 12 and 14 and 16. And in my neighborhood, the kids actually go outside and play together. It's not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
really? They still do that?
Yeah, and that's actually when I first moved into my neighborhood, I was like, what is this? Like they're bicycling outside and they're playing tag and they're playing basketball. And
I have not seen that in so long.
It's a shame, but it was also super refreshing. So I get to see my neighbors kids, and we talk about where they're at in life. And we have this one kid, he's just going to be a genius, and another kid who's going to be a workhorse. Now, some people may hear that and be like, oh my gosh, she just insulted somebody. But no, this is reality. Like some of us just have natural attributes in the way that we're designed to present different gifts to the world. Like one of these kids they're going to probably be the next chief operating officer because of how they kind of manage things. Like they just kind of get things done. You see it, right? They're the ones that are coordinating the lemonade stand. And the other genius kid is saying, well, I think the recipe of the lemonade is not the best flavor and we can like tweak it this way, right? So that's like the distinction. But actually the question, sorry to kind of go off on a little riff there. The parents, when I talk to them, and of course, what they know I do at People Work, they're always like, gosh, I can't wait until they get to this stage. I can't wait until I put them into this school. I can't wait until I think they're going to get this kind of job. And I always ask them, what are you waiting for? And what rooftop do you think is needed for your child to get what they need to become the best version of their adult selves, or if you're an adult, the next version of your adult self. Of course, like, what the heck do you mean, Kim? Because it's so like philosophical. I simply am saying, if your child is a genius, within the internet today, there are so many master classes out there, people that are teaching different skill sets that your child can learn and develop at their own pace, at their own rate. You don't need like an official school to make that happen anymore. They're like, you know what I mean? So you're like,
Yes.
12 years old, and they think, okay, now I gotta wait until they're 16 so that they can have access to different education. No, give them it now. It's accessible now. Like, there's no reason why you have to wait. You don't have to get permission to do those things. And that's what I mean. Like, we're so used to saying you can only be this at this stage in this place at this age. It's like, no, you are many different things. And actually, I love what AI is going to do to the world. It's going to be fascinating as people start to interact with a different data source about how the data source sees us and how stupid we are sometimes. Like, the most ridiculous things we put ourselves into a box for. It's just crazy.
What's something that, and maybe it's considered an unpopular opinion, but what's something that you see that you just say is just so stupid that we do as humans that's totally limiting us, especially our kids?
Well, so I think this is probably a leading question, and this has to do with the biggest strategic shift that that society is really going to encounter, and it's going to be a struggle. It is the melding of education and work. It is the fluidity of what it means to be knowledgeable and apply that knowledge to earn a living, to contribute to society. It's that's really the stupidest thing. And of course, selfishly, that's why I started pepelwerk, because I'm like, why are we doing chicken and egg? Like, I'm a former chief HR officer, and I'm getting like leftovers of all the bad decisions. Like, why would I be able to hire Dion for this job that I have available for 10 years if he just got out of school and he's missing like 12 skills? And, in education, they're trying to map education to jobs that are almost a decade dead. It's like chicken and egg. It doesn't have to be a thing anymore. And that's the stupidest thing about, the way that humans treat I guess the stupidest thing to do is to think that education is separate from work. It's just connected.
And when you say that, I wonder is college even necessary for people? Is that a necessary step? Seems like folks can get the training that they need, especially you talk about the one kid's great at organizing and leaders and putting together the thing. And the one kid's great at, like, well, let's formulate the lemonade like this. And if you have all these different skills at a very young age, if you already see it, why not just start to help develop those things? Why send them on a path that's going to give them such a huge percentage of information that's not relevant to, one, where they want to go, and two, what they're great at? Do you think people need to go to college?
Well, I'm going to ask you a different kind of question.
Okay.
What is college?
Yeah. I would say, do they need to go to traditional definition of college?
So that's an example of
That's a
AI.
great question.
Like, AI is going to be like, well, tell me what is a college? And somebody could respond, they're 60 minutes. Gosh, I'm kind of name blank right now about all of the different news stations that have interviewed the humanoids. And you ask a humanoid a question, and they come back to you like, that's the oddest thing. Like, are you Dion? Are you a student? Are you a father? Are you an employer? Are you this? Are you that? Are you legal? Are you this? And the humanoid's like, when you're any of those things, or you're only one of those things, what are you still? You're just a human. And so if you're just a human, you're going to have to find out what you want out of life in order for life to do what you want it to do. But we're not, we're still kind of stuck in these, like, you can only be this, that, or the other thing. But going back to your college question and kind of and trying to connect my points is when I start, I think it was actually before it started. There's a couple of my books that are my favorite that a lot of people have spent a lot of time over hundreds of years trying to break out and understand the economy of college, the economy of university. And I used to be of the mind frame that, absolutely not. Like, I don't think that university or college has to be a thing in 2025. But I've educated myself, not through university, but through connecting where the money goes and understand what a university is supposed to contribute to society. There are people that will need to go to a university or to, I'll just say a university, because most people are not aware that colleges, trade schools, et cetera, are not all the same thing. Universities receive a lot of federal funding and a lot of endowments for really intelligent people to try to solve some really complicated problems around our human existence. And when you think about the function of university to society in that way and getting the next generation of brilliant minds to participate in all of the testing and learning with experienced people, I think that's invaluable. And I think that's the right thing to do. But that really only accounts for about 15% of humanity. Most of us are average Joes, just trying to figure out if we're going to make it so that we get that job. So universities and colleges, when they have enrollment from the rest of the 85% of us who are just average, just supplementing the income for the university, well, no, I don't think that's value add. It's, sidebar, very relevant. There's so much clickbait about college debt. Like, why are we getting, what is this whole, why are we going to get paid back? I think that's a horrible question to ask. Like, we're asking the wrong questions.
What are the right ones?
Why is debt even a thing?
Yeah.
Because if you put work and education together, like we do at Pepelwerk, you should not end up with unnecessary debt. You should find value, in what you're doing. So I think there's a time and a place for all learning. And I think just consumers have to be aware of what they're buying before they do something, and knowing that in 2025, the options of doing life are not blocked. They are intertwined more than ever.
I'm curious how you've successfully blended work and education. Like, what are you guys doing right that so many people are getting wrong out there with blending these two things? This is actually the first time I'm hearing anybody even say this, that they've blended the two things. They're very separate conversations. Like, you go get educated and then you go to work. And then after work, maybe you can level yourself up somewhere on things you're interested in. But it's the first time I'm hearing a founder say, we do it together. What does that look like?
Well, Pepelwerk as a solution is doing that through data and gathering input. But Pepelwerk, the company, if I put my CEO hat on, I don't even qualify people to come work for Pepelwerk because they have a pedigree or a resume. Both of those things are limiting. If you weren't in a certain zip code, you might not have the pedigree. If you didn't have the network, you might not have the resume. So I don't really need to judge people on access or availability or degrees that they're upset about debt. Like, I don't need to weigh people on those things because they're not really relevant to the human capacity or the contribution that they can do to yield great results. So because I don't start off at that point standard, I don't say I need you to have this learning or this label or this background. It gives me as a CEO a lot of room to basically intertwine learning and work from the beginning. So the distinction here for how I execute it personally in my day-to-day life, how I tell my kids to do it, and what we do at PeopleWork, honestly, it's not really a secret. We all do it. It's just what is it like the fake news that like I feel like everyone's been sold the wrong story that you've got to do this, that, or the other in a certain order. But when you ask anybody how they do their job every day, and I guarantee you 99% are going to say, I had to search, I had to research, I had to call somebody, I had to learn while I was doing. If that's true for 99% of us, then why are we trying to set some weird, fictional standard that you must have had this degree or certificate or whatever? Like there's some psychological things that I think go along with that. Some people are afraid that they won't have enough knowledge, or the people that they're going to work for or whatever they're representing might not think credibly of them. And obviously there's some trust that has to happen. Like you can't do what PeopleWork does if you don't trust. You have to trust the east side of the equation to make it work. Because if you're suspect of something being artificial or not being real about fair about what they're expecting in the job, that doesn't work. So there are some other, things about being human that have to be considered to make it work. But from a data perspective and how we do work every day, it just happens in real time.
That's I would imagine that's an unpopular view for a leader of a company, because if you think about it, we've all been taught that, hey, if you have a degree in this thing and then you go apply for a job that's asking for that thing, then you've proven that you can do that thing. At least you have the education and the knowledge around it. But what you just said to me makes a lot more sense. You're looking at the human and the skills, and it might not necessarily mean it's just based on the paperwork. You're opening up yourself to be able to bring in a whole new variety of human beings. So it gives you this diversity, this access to diversity, where people, like you said, if you're in the wrong zip code, you would not have had access to that particular education. But it doesn't mean you're not qualified. It doesn't mean you can't bring value to the company. I think if more people thought like that, we would have so much more innovation at light speed, because you'd have all these diverse minds at the table that would have gotten overlooked. But that's scary, because you kind of, as a leader, you want to do what you know, what you're comfortable with. And everybody says, hey, look for these degrees for this particular role. How do you reconcile that for a leader that's like, I'm at a company, I want to hire, I want to be more diverse and open-minded, but it scares the crap out of me thinking about that. How do they bridge that gap?
Oh my gosh, everything you said, Dan, we can talk about for hours, because you bring up, we wouldn't have D&I initiatives. We did this because it would just be life. You don't have to make a special program for being equitable. It's just like, you don't have to get people to be up in arms about how special one group is over the other. You're just diverse of thought, and you will be surprised. And that's, I think, what I love about watching the end product of PeopleWork, either for how my team has been fostered organically through the platform because I drink my own Kool-Aid, or our customers who are using the AI for assistant to support their communities and their employees. And then that future workforce thing, it is what trips people up. It is really a control thing that HR people freak out at. You'd be surprised when what do you say? When people say what they want, but then they actually get what they want, they're like, oh my gosh. I told you I really want to hire blindly without bias. Now I'm doing it, and now I have to reconsider exactly how blind do I want to be when I hire, and how unbiased do I really want to be. It is jarring. So I don't know if I have that magic answer yet for how I help people reconcile it, because to be very to be brutally blunt about the situation, they probably wouldn't be a PeopleWork customer for very long.
Why?
Because they can't handle the difference. Here's a great example. The people who recognize the simplicity of what we've done on PeopleWork to provide such a magnanimous result on so many big macro social work education issues. They get it and they stay with us for a long time. But those people that are undercover, like I really gotta control the brand, that the brand of who they hire, and this much variety of people to consider, I'm not comfortable with. And so they just wouldn't stick around because the results aren't something they're comfortable with. Or this is, I love this one always. People are always like, oh, you could go anywhere. Go, especially on LinkedIn, you could probably find 5 bazillion people, all HR types, saying, the resume is not the best tool to be hiring people. Okay, I give them a platform that does not use a resume as a qualifying criteria, instead uses people's natural attributes and abilities, and they say, where's the resume? But you didn't talk to them. Well, I can't talk to everybody. Well, I'm not asking you to talk to everybody. You asked for strategic thinkers that were reliable and consistent and could be able to solve complex problems, and somebody that you could trust who had the skills for doing these things. You got those people. But now you're asking for a resume. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
So
that's fascinating.
Yeah, I can't, the answer to your question, I can't reconcile it, because people are getting what we are all saying and promoting are like the necessary changes. But there are a few people in that decision-making seat that it just makes them too uncomfortable to have that much reality.
And a little bit of faith in the process that the outcome is going to get them what they want.
Yes, which is a whole nother thing. I always, when people say, well, I want and now people can add their resume if they have one, if they want to. We just don't use it as a qualifying condition for all the reasons that I've said. But what I am so surprised at is that they won't let the process run. They would rather go through the pain of what they're going through today. Some people prefer the pain that they know, the devil that they know, versus the anxiety of the unknown. And that's a hard human flaw that a lot of us have. And I say it's a flaw because in the same breath, somebody could be really saying, I really want this to change, but they're holding themselves and the change back because they would prefer the devil that they know. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird human psychological conundrum.
For sure.
But the where I was going with my point about the change is, if somebody, and I know I have like a high appetite for change. That's why I'm CEO of a change company. I embrace change, and I help people and organizations iterate with change. And I try not to get them kind of slapped around by it as much as possible. That's what I'm gifted with. I'm gifted with looking forward and being able to walk a transition path to what the future holds. That's my gift. So when people become customers of PeopleWork and they don't let the process run, it really is like breaks my heart, because I'm like, you stop before, from a competitive standpoint, it's like you start a race, but you only made like 5 steps. I'm like, why did you even start the race? I don't get it.
And they give up. Yeah. That's you got me thinking about my own, my kids right now. I'm thinking about, I have a 17, 15, and a 12-year-old. And trying to think of how I can best prepare them and set them up for what's coming next, especially my 17-year-old. And today she just told me, she's like, I just realized I don't really know anything about like money. and how it all works and what I should do next. I don't want to go to college, but everybody's saying I should go and that it helps me, whatever, for what's next. And we had just a brief moment in the car this morning talking about it. And I thought about you. And I was like, okay. I said, I want you to watch a couple of videos when you get back. Someone that I'm interviewing today, because she just frames things in a way that might get you thinking differently about it. But I'm a little afraid of doing things different. I kind of want to put her into what everybody else is saying, but I know it's flawed. Like we've been talking about. It's a flawed way of thinking. The status quo, the way things just are done, doesn't work. Like you said, what is it? 15% of the people these universities are actually really made for, the ones you were talking about. And then you got the rest of us. It's not working for the rest of us. But when you start talking about doing things differently, not looking at the resume, giving people an opportunity to show up based on their skills, that's the kind of stuff I want to teach my kids now so they can be ready for that. But my concern is anybody looking for that. Or you see what I'm saying? Or am I going to prepare them for a way of thinking that a huge percentage of the employers, they're not thinking that way, so they're going to get overlooked. If I send all my kids to you, life is great because you're going to actually look at the humans and the skills. But if so many people are afraid to look at it that way, what do we do? How do we actually get this change going? That's got to be maddening for you. Seeing the results, you know it works. They just stay the course. What is the solution?
Oh my gosh, yeah, yes, it's maddening for me. Yes, I think it's. I feel like Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory. I'm like, don't you just get it? Like, come on. It should be so clear. But there's a couple things that I'll throw out there just for a response to your situation, the way that you feel as a parent. It's the devil we know.
Yeah.
And as parents in modern society, in modern U.S. society, there are a lot of countries that are well ahead of the United States in the way of thinking and already meshing work and education. Some countries have been doing it for such a long time that people work is really just a technology to enable what they're already doing well, just to make it easier. And like people work in the U.S. is to make it plausible. That's where we're at in the United States. So there's so many parents that are just like, it's the devil I know. I don't want to be perceived as a parent that didn't try to put their child. You have the parent stories, like, are you the one to say, oh, I didn't let my child go to college? I always have to say, I learned the mistake from my oldest child, like most of us do. Like if we're the oldest child and we have more than one child, the oldest is always the test money.
That's right. Yeah. She says it all the time. She's like, I'm the one getting screwed. My siblings get, they get the benefit of it.
And that's just a design. And my youngest, she got to benefit from the lessons learned of, and now in a more informed parent, as well as an older sibling who unfortunately still had the same pains of people 2 or 3 generations older than her, right? So my if you will, I don't even know, to keep my parents' swag card intact, that I wasn't like this flaky gypsy rebel mom, because I'm so amenable to change. I said, at the end of the day, I asked my youngest daughter, what do you want out of life? You want to be educated? Do you is a degree a thing for you? Do you feel like that's going to make you feel better as a whole person? Money? Do you just want money? Take the rain, get the product first, walk away, and all day. Is that what you want? Do you want to find work that is work to play or play to work? What is it that you want out of your life? Tell me about how you see yourself spending it, not for what you're in your 50s, because the other false story that we all were designed to do is that if you do this at this stage, then you can work for the same company for 40 years and then you retire and you get your retirement fund. None of that exists anymore. So you can't put your child into a position that those world options aren't viable anymore. That is not what they're walking into. They're working in individual financial responsibility, fluidity of work life, education in real time, altered reality. And in most cases, I think I read somewhere, and I wish I remember where I read it, by the year 2040, I could go through an entire workday and not talk to a human.
Wow.
So what does that do? What if these are the facts that the people who should be going to universities are presenting? Like, if that's what they're presenting as that's our plausible future, not just plausible, that's our likely future, then we have to ask our children different kinds of questions. We have to ask ourselves different kinds of questions about how we work. So for my youngest, one, she was like, I don't really want to go to university. I don't need a degree to do that. And I'm not going to go to university to party because I can do that on the weekends when I go to the parties. Like, she was like, I already have university. Yes. She's like, I already have university life without paying the university debt. So I don't need that. And then we talked about the priorities of money versus fulfillment. Like, are you going to be a social worker and get paid $10 an hour and feel good about that? She's like, no, that's not it. But she's a very compassionate person. And yes, she's gone to app, she's done her face code. All my kids have gone through, the people work experience. She loves beauty. She loves things that make people feel beautiful. And so her path is getting a certificate, a skills-based certificate in a high demand career in the beauty industry, and making bank and having good parties and living life. And people might say, well, that might change for her. And that's okay. I hope that when she's 30, if she wants to go get a university degree, it's a thing. Okay, go get it. I think the expectation that you had to get a university degree at your 20s and had to be married by your 25 and have kids by 28. Like, I don't know who teaches life that way anymore. That's very 1950s. I don't even know what that's.
Yeah, we are still very trapped by these old, outdated beliefs that we think are the way. And it's just fear. It's fear of the unknown. Like, what if I do it differently and it doesn't work out? Then I've just kind of screwed up my kids, and so I'm going to just stick to what everybody has been telling me.
Well, statistically, they're going to be screwed up anyways.
Yeah, that's right. No matter what. Yeah. This is true.
There is no red or blue pill here. It is all a mesh of purple. You just get a different kind of consequence at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't change. And I think that's the other part about connecting education and work. It can't be linear anymore. Like, the strategic shift has to be its mesh. It has to be in real time. I have another adult friend who he kind of did people work without people work. Like, he just raised his kids this way. He put his kids into work, and he told his kids, I don't want you to go to college or university first. I want you to work full time for 1 year, just to know what that's like. And only after you've worked full time, a 16-year-old doing the smoothie factory on the weekend, whatever, right? That's okay. But to separate and give yourself a mental space from stop being a student to being an adult and working it's kind of like it's a rite of passage. Like, Australia, they are the best country that does this. The Netherlands, another great country that does this really well. They don't force anybody into a next step, because there has to be a mental transition from you being programmed to being a student to knowing and understanding the freedom that comes with money, income, work, possibly living on your own. That's different. And so until you understand the difference, how can you possibly make an informed decision about what the next 5 or 10 years of your life are going to be?
That's a great point. You know this, so that means other people know this who are in the business of knowing these things. And why on earth aren't we making the shift as a country knowing that there's other countries who are leading the way with some of these philosophies and these ways of doing things. Why are we so far behind?
Well, I'm going to say, thank goodness Doge is there.
Yeah. Start looking under the hood of all of
Yes. Yes. You start looking under the hood. I mean, this is, it was really heartbreaking to me when I started PeopleWork to see the level of negligence in the government to service what we think is supposed to be education and what we think is supposed to be employment. I was very confused again about the question. Like, what is the Department of Labor supposed to be doing for its citizens? If it's supposed to be maintaining safe places to work integrity, it should do that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's supposed to be to make sure that all U.S. citizens have continuous access to earning a living, then they need to update their policies from 1870. What was really concerning to me is that the Department of Labor actually reinforces you getting on unemployment. The contention that they create between an employer and employee, the difference in language between who's a contractor, like it's so outdated. I'm like, what are y'all doing? This is just, y'all fell asleep at the wheel. And then when it comes to Department of Education, I couldn't believe the things that I found out. I was like, are you kidding me? Our public school system, K through 12, in 47 of our states do not have Salesforce, Microsoft, or Google allowed in their education tech stacks because it's still on a wait list to be approved for curriculum. I have news for the world. Salesforce, Google, and any other platform Microsoft that have been around for 40 years, unless somebody kills a server somewhere, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So to deny that type of curriculum development as part of a core work strategy, not because it's I don't want Salesforce to get into the brains of my kid, but if Salesforce is an implementation tool that gets them to an in-demand job, I would want them to have, that kind of access to it. So to think that the administrative blockade and straight negligence has been left for so long, I'm like, oh my gosh. So that's why. And then you have people that are supposedly tasked with change, but until the most recent administration allowed and was comfortable with the bureaucracy of it, as if everything is just okay to be okay dysfunctional. It was like, what did I call it? I used to call comfortable failure. Or just comfortable failure. So I have a question for you, Dion.
Yes.
How many times was your 17-year-old 15?
Once.
So why does the Department of Education think that they have 3 years to make a decision for your 15-year-old when they turn 15? There's no sense of urgency, as if life just keeps going for them. Another question for you, Dion. If I said to you, I have $20,000 available for you as soon as your child is born. The federal government is $20,000 for you. I'm going to put it in a savings account for you. The federal government is going to put them in a savings account for you. That's option one. Option two is I'm going to have you wait until your child is 18. They need to apply for a FAFSA, a student federal financial aid program for grants and Pell Grants. And only after a year and a half of waiting for an application could you possibly know that your child might have had $20,000 to pay for an education. Which option would you choose?
Option one. No brainer.
No brainer. So why is the Department of Education operating on premise two? And what's even a bigger question is where was the Department of Budget for the defense of citizen benefits? Where were they asleep at the wheel? Like the math of the situation. I'm not a math person, but that's like basic. If I'm a citizen and my country is already spending on me per kid, so I've done math 1,000 times, we should have between $37,000 and $51,000 per citizen in the U.S. eligible to pay for any type of education. That's through federal giving and nonprofit dollars. Do you get that much money for your kids?
No.
Where's the money? Where is the money? That's you're why are we so far behind? I think anytime government is left to their own devices without checks and balances and without a very serious ball buster in administration, somebody who has no material gain to be made from the bureaucracy scene and is literally after trying to reconstruct how we spend, collect, and service citizens. Until that happens and it's allowed to happen, we will never get to option one. And that's unfortunate because if you go to Sweden, if you go to Netherlands, I can keep listing about 14 different countries that they've been doing those same kinds of programs. And you know what is also funny is that they're the most educated with the least amount of universities. They're the most employed and most financially stable countries. They're doing something right.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Oh man, there's so much to unpack there because, on one hand, you could say, is it just incompetence? And, like you said before, the devil kind of stuff. Everyone's just comfortable in doing what they do. Is it fraud, like willful, people hiding things and it's all about money and keeping things the way they are for very specific reasons? I don't know. I've got my ideas, but here's where we're at. This is what we have. This is what we're dealing with. So what can we do? Somebody says Kim Kelley is now in charge of the Department of Labor and the Department of Education. What is one of the first things that you would put in place to start to undo some of this harm? Like, what would you fix first? There's so much stuff wrong. And a lot of stuff we don't even know what's going on. But what would you do to start to make some of these changes to get people moving toward what's working around the world?
Well, my answer is very simple. I would just implement pepelwerk.
Yes.
And that's it.
Nice. All right. So there we
that's
go.
really, I think that's the other part too. People had so many different opinions of the Department of Education being dismantled.
Mm-hmm.
No one even knew what the frick those people were doing.
Right.
So what do you up in arms about? When something, I have this theory, you can go in and you can break something completely. You go through the noise of people like, oh gosh, I can't believe they did that. Let the dust settle in 6 months. If no one comes to you and says, I have been waiting for X from this person, it was a useless function. It provided no value. So when I give you an answer as brief as it's implementing pepelwerk, that's truly what it is. The money's in the bank. You're a citizen. I'm a citizen. You've got kids. The federal governments know that. The state knows that. There's no other change that needs to be made. Dion, here's their pepelwerk app for your family. Create your profiles. And as your family goes through iterations of when you need employment and when you need money to get skilled for that employment, here's your funds. Mm. Oh, by the way, because of how many kids you have, here is a savings bucket that your money is sitting in, and it's compounding for you. Oh, shoot. Those things exist today. It really is that simple. It's just rerouting 2 or 3 different things.
So, Mr. President, if you're listening, we have found a solution. We will solve this immediately. Implement pepelwerk. Thank you. All right. We'll make sure that clip gets over there to the White House.
The next executive order.
Yes, that's right. So I want to give some folks who are in decision-making positions inside of an organization, whether it's education institution, company, whatever it may be, some tactical things that they can start doing right now to maybe fix some of the most common areas that you see people are blowing it, where they're like, this is why you're not getting the talent that you actually are trying to get. This is why the people that you currently have are not performing to the level that you want them to be. You're not getting that productivity and those outcomes. What is something that I could do right now in my own organization to start to see that shift, even the beginnings of shift that I can do that's not overwhelming with all the other shit I got going on, trying to run a business? What can I do right now?
Well, same simple answer. Just start implementing paperwork.
Okay. No, that's fair.
This is, I love the way that you framed the question, because I was on a call the other day with an organization who does professional services. And she explained the organization's problem is that they don't really know where the skills gap is for their current workforce. And they know that they are missing revenue opportunities for it. And the CEO needs to solve the problem. Like, they have money waiting on the bench. They don't really have an inventory of how so that they can understand what their capabilities are of people to deliver this work. So I show her, and she's like, this is amazing. I've never seen workforce planning made so simply. But we are not even at this level yet, because we still need to do job descriptions, job mapping, career planning. And I said, did your CEO ask you to create a skills database? She said, no. My CEO asked me to solve the problem of getting an understanding of what skills our people have so that we can put more people to work, because there are projects. I said, then why are you spending what will be 2 to 3 years on work he didn't ask you to do that you could start today? And for her, it was uncomfortable, because I caught her, not like, you catch somebody out. That was not what I was trying to do when I was explaining to her the opportunity. But it made her, whatever, like when a computer goes like
yeah, like a little glitch. It's a glitch.
She's like, wait a minute, that's not HR. That's not, that's like,
does not compute. Not compute.
Yes, exactly. So she's like, I'm going to have to take that back. And I'm like, no, you don't have to wait to start change today. That's the whole premise of the way that people work was designed. It's not an all or none. It's a little bit at a time, and it's iterative. But those organizations, what they can do is so simple that they talk themselves out of the simplicity because they love the complexity. They love that human addiction to drama and the stress of it all. Like, what do you do if you actually wake up and you have one screen that solves all your problems, and then the rest of the day you can put some fake Zoom recorder on that you're in the office while you're out on the patio? Like, what do you do?
You bring up an interesting point, in which is, okay, let's say that these things start being solved, and let's say people start implementing solutions like paperwork that are actually real solutions that actually start to solve this. I feel like some people are going to be eliminated because there's a lot of wasted human capital being employed at doing like what you just said, where the person's going to spend 2 or 3 years trying to solve something that no one's asking for, that's inefficient, that's broken and outdated. I feel like eventually paperwork will come in and make certain jobs obsolete inside of the HR ecosystem. If I'm an HR person and I got a brain and I hear what you're telling me and I'm like, she's right, but I'm afraid. What if that replaces me? Then what am I going to do? How does that come together?
If it's not paperwork, it's something else. Like, that's just the reality of people are trying to avoid evolving, strategically shifting. They're the ones that are going to destroy themselves. I mean,
that's great. That's a good distinction.
And this is this is where in the world of work, you have to have both sides being prepared to change. A law firm customer of mine called me and said, I just found out one of the people we hired you are in the pool doing their work. And I said, okay, what's the problem? They're in the pool. They should be at their desk. What is it, this work that you're talking about? They had to do something like with Excel. And I said, is the Excel wrong? And he said, no, it was great. But I'm sorry. So your person was happy, did great work, but because the locale bothered you, you're calling me. Well, one, that would never happen because my customers would never call me after that. But that's not, you shouldn't be calling me about those things. That's after you hire situation. And I said, so wait a minute. You saved money finding the right hire, who had the right skills, who did quality work that yielded you a return, and you're unhappy. So you have to change as well. You employer, you company. Like I revel in the day when I get to look at what the people work team has done, and I find out that they actually had to do like 2 hours worth of work to get that done. I look forward to that because I don't hold a metric of human success based on a 1980s compensation band that says you gave me 40 hours of your life and therefore I can give you this much and I expect it in that frame. That's just not the way that AI and technology is going to force us to reevaluate that exchange of time for effort and return. So yeah, there's this whole thing about strategically shifting is about trust. If you cannot play in an ecosystem, if you don't find your tribe, if you don't talk with the audience where you can feel like there is a certain level of trust where people aren't trying to troll just for trolling's sake, or people aren't out to get you, if you kind of, you have to, I guess that's probably the way that we could, my final words for the call would be something along the lines of strategically shifting requires you to be able to trust yourself, trust your community, trust who you're working for. It doesn't mean be naive about it, but you also can't stand still or else you will be eliminated. You will not be able to move with the future.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap today, is getting people to think, even just if the big takeaway from the call today was be open to change, be open to shifting. It doesn't mean you're going to lose what you know. Doesn't mean it's actually going to forward you so you don't become obsolete and get left behind, Blockbuster, and make that adjustment. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for the time today. I learned a lot. Would love to do this again if you're open to it, because I know there's all kind of additional rabbit holes we could go down. I want to explore with you, but thank you for the time. I feel like this was very valuable, and people are going to get a lot of value out of this.
Well, you had great questions, and you gave me a lot to think about too, and you listening to things and finding opportunities to make people think.
Yes, that's a good thing. Where can people learn more about what People is doing and what Kim Kelley is up to? Where should they go to check it out?
Pepelwerk, spelled phonetically, PEPELWERK.com, and then social channels somewhere for me.
Okay.
Just make sure you spell it with Kim Kelley with an E, and I'll pop up in page 1 somewhere.
Got it. I'll put some stuff down in the description so people can check out what you're doing. Thank you again. I appreciate you. Go out and get her book. You can find it on Amazon. It's available right now. Expand your mind and make the strategic shift. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, do me a huge favor and subscribe. Leave some comments below or some feedback so that I can continue to improve and deliver better content to you guys. I want to provide as much value as I can, but I need to know how it's working or what's not working. So I'd really appreciate that. And if you have an idea for a show or you have a guest you'd love to see, pop them in the comments. I'll do my best to make it happen. I will see you next week. In the meantime, don't get stagnant. Keep shifting.